Who really counts in this country? I'm Scott Ott, and this is Bill Whittle Now. And Bill, this week, the U.S. Supreme Court heard arguments in a case involving whether the U.S. Census, which comes again in 2020 as it does decennially, should ask a question regarding citizenship. Now, the census used to have a question about citizenship. I think we stopped doing that in the 1950s. But there are some states and obviously some liberal Democrats who are arguing that the Trump administration's motives in restoring this question to the census are questionable at best and perhaps nefarious. In fact, I believe the Washington Post editorial board calls it one of the Trump administration's more glaring con jobs. And their contention is that all the Trump administration is trying to do is find a way to favor Republicans by changing the way the House of Representatives is apportioned and obviously the way Treasury monies are dispersed, which is part of what the census is set out to determine. Bill, the question hasn't been on there for, 40 or 50 years. Why stir the pot now and add a question about citizenship?
Well, for 40 or 50 years, we more or less assumed that the census measured citizenship. For 40 or 50 years, the last 40 or 50 years, the wave of illegal immigration has been overwhelming and is definitely statistically noticeable in terms of elections and apportioning of districts and representatives and all the rest of it. In a country that obeyed its own laws, this issue would be very simple. Needless to say, you would simply not ask a person who's either not a citizen or permanent legal resident about the census. They have no business taking the census. They're either tourists or guest workers. You should be able to determine in a perfect world, and I understand they don't exist, but in a world that plays by its own rules, the internal population of the United States should be determined by the census of its citizens plus the number of people, which we should know to the individual, who are either visiting on tourist visas, they're on work visas, they're on guest worker permits. We should just know that. And so to put it back on the ballot is, in fact, beneficial to Republicans in the way that so many things are beneficial to Republicans. Requiring ID to vote is beneficial to Republicans. Having this on the census is beneficial to Republicans. And having an election day instead of an election month is beneficial to Republicans, because all of these things prevent people who shouldn't be voting from voting.
Well, the people who are complaining about this and suing the government over this say that there are several issues in play here. Number one is that the government has not field tested this question. So they're going straight to the census with it in 2020, which is a big dang deal and affects a lot of people in a lot of ways. No, I'm not saying the field testing is a big dang deal. The census is a big dang deal. It's in the Constitution,
that's right.
after all.
Yes, absolutely.
So the census is a big dang deal. The question has not been field tested, and their concern is that it may result in a significant undercount not just because non-citizen aliens, so to speak, will not be counted, but because even former aliens, so to speak, the immigrants who become citizens are often part of extended families that involve non-citizens, and it will discourage them from wanting to participate in the count. Doesn't that make some sense to you, Bill?
To the degree that somebody who may be a legal citizen is aiding and abetting in the sheltering of an illegal citizen, and that intimidates them from participating in the census, my response to that is, well, maybe you shouldn't be, flaunting the law. This is the thing that is constantly used in defense of any of these measures to get people who should not legally be voting. It's the same thing that's used when they try to deny voter registration of any kind. Photo ID, which you need to go and buy beer at 7-Eleven, but you don't need photo ID to vote, and so on. All of these measures that are in place to determine that only U.S. citizens are voting are opposed by Democrats, and they're opposed by Democrats in the same way. They're saying voter fraud is not as important as voter representation. But having somebody voting who's not supposed to be voting is voter fraud. It cancels my vote. My vote is canceled. My representation vote. The thing that the Democrats are constantly complaining about is every voice must be heard. Well, every citizen's voice must be heard, and my voice has a right to be heard as much as anybody else's voice. And if my vote is canceled by the vote of somebody who is not legally here, then I'm being deprived of my civil rights. And we don't have the common sense to use this argument, and should be the name of the show, right? It's like, why are we so stupid to not be able to figure this out? But this is basically it. If an illegal alien votes and cancels my vote, I've been deprived of my vote.
Well, Bill, the other side is also saying that there are other ways to determine this information. And the fact that the Trump administration wants to put this citizenship question in the census, they're not using this terminology, but I am, that is in effect a brushback pitch. It's designed to scare off immigrants. It's designed to intimidate Democrats. So that there's really a political purpose here in doing this. Do you sense a political purpose?
They want to look at it as a brushback pitch, and I'd be willing to go along with that. And what I mean by that is, yes, it is a notification that Donald Trump and the people that elected him have had enough of our entire country being crapped on, not by the illegal immigrants who are trying to get here. They're committing crimes by getting here, but you can certainly hardly fault them for that. The people who are responsible for this catastrophe are the Democratic politicians who need to import laborers to do the job that Americans won't do, which is vote for Democrats. And this is the whole thing. So when they say this is intimidation, it's like, well, what intimidation of whom? How is the census intimidation of a U.S. citizen? Well, there's a lot of people who are harboring people who aren't U.S. citizens. Well, what does that tell you? I mean, what does that tell you? If you are a legal alien here, a legal resident alien, and you have the right to vote, or rather, in this, at least be measured in the census, then your excuse is, well, by doing this, I may be opening myself up for further investigation. Then maybe you shouldn't be doing that. It's kind of like asking a question like, do you distribute cocaine on the census? You know, are you a drug dealer? What's your choices? Either don't take the census, say yes, I'm a drug dealer, or say no.
Which is exactly what happens with drug testing at a lot of companies that do employment drug testing. Is when people find out that their urine is going to be tested, they don't apply. And so, that's kind of the argument here. Let me get another angle on this. And go ahead.
My point is, just to make this crystal clear, my point is suppressing the vote of people that do not have the right to vote in the first place is neither morally wrong or legally wrong or racist or anything. It's got nothing to do with any of that. If they're complaining that this is suppressing the vote of people who do not have the right to vote in the first place, then that is actual justice. Forget about patriotism.
So let's take this from a purely political standpoint, with larger and larger groups of younger and younger people rising up into the ranks of the voting populace, with the Republican Party, frankly, in many areas aging out, because, as you say, when you give public speeches, sometimes the average age in most Republican gatherings is what?
It's deceased.
That's right. So because of that, can't this just seem like another example where, we have young people growing up in this multicultural landscape that is the United States, with more and more immigrants, with technology companies recruiting more and more people from other countries. So you're growing up in this rich stew of mixes of cultures, and the Republicans seem to trip over themselves to come down against immigrants at every possible turn.
You're making two arguments here. Let me rephrase that. You're making an argument, and I'm going to illustrate that position that you've just stated with two examples. One of them is the example of, hey, Christianity has a kind of a bad rap, so why don't we make our church all about it's just like a place to hang, man, and we just rap about things. We just play games, card games, rap about things and stuff. The idea that you're going to bring people into the church by making it not a church is an example. And the other example, the first one that came to mind, is that this is the new Coke argument. Pepsi shares are growing, meaning that millennials are coming into the voting system in large numbers, and they tend to vote more Democrat. And so as the share of Pepsi is growing, the only thing that we can do as Republicans is to make our brand taste more like Pepsi. When in point of fact, What we really need to be doing is marketing the living daylights out of Coke, which is a better drink than Pepsi, by the way, and is a world-leading brand. And so we are now faced with the same kind of choice that we've seen in a very specific example of New Coke, which was widely considered, and I certainly agree, the greatest marketing failure and the biggest business blunder of the century. And we also see it in the culture in Europe where churches are opening themselves up for Muslim religious services, and the churches are actually doing everything they can to make sure that the message that you go to church for is not heard. So to say that we should just basically just buckle under on this one is look, if it's right, if it turns out that that's correct, then it's over.
Well, Bill, you've said it's over. I mean, I've seen you give speeches. You've given
Oh,
speeches.
no.
Listen to me. You've given speeches to
ever
dozens of groups, and you've told them that if millennials alone voted in the next election, there would be one red state in the entire country.
That's correct, but that's not the same as saying it's over. Okay, that's not the same as saying it's over. I've never said it's over. If I thought it was over, I wouldn't be doing this. I'd be stocking up on beans and ammo and finding a place in Montana someplace that costs about as much as maybe my garage does in Sherman Oaks. So I'm not saying it's over. What I'm saying again and again and again, pretty much every episode of this show, is what I'm saying again and again and again and again and again, is that the Republican Party and conservatives in general do not know how to make an argument to save their lives. And the way you make an argument about this particular issue is you put people on the spot where they are now forced to live up to the consequences of their virtue signaling. I saw a remarkable thing, which I've mentioned once or twice. It was an interview, I think it was in Germany. It was a Muslim-looking man, and he was part of the experiment. And he was interviewing a number of old German socialists. Well, I repeat myself. Number of old Germans, right? What do you think about migrants? What do you think about the immigration from Africa? And every single one of these white-haired liberals said, "Oh, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. It's necessary. We have an obligation to do it, and we welcome. We're not like America. We welcome all races and stuff." And so then the interviewer says, "Oh, that's such a relief to hear. Here's my cousin Mohammed," and then 16-year-old kid with a beard comes in, says he's got no place to stay, so I was hoping he could maybe stay with you. The problem is right now I just don't have any room because I've got family visiting, or I don't have any room because I'm remodeling, or, ooh, this isn't a good time because I've got a big event going on, or, ooh, I don't know if I can do it right now. Maybe you could call me later at work. Okay, what's your number? Why don't you give me your email and I'll send it to you. Again and again and again and again and again and again and again. They will not live up to the philosophy they claim to maintain. This is why when I go to colleges, when I used to go to colleges, I don't go there anymore on account of them not being colleges anymore. But when I used to go, and I'd run into socialists, students, millennials, and they would say they're socialists, I would say, bring down your cell phones, let's go to a pawn shop, cash them in, distribute the money to the homeless, let's take from those who have the greatest ability and give it to those who have the greatest need. Bring them down. Let's go. And they won't. And they won't do it. They won't do it because they're not socialists. They won't do it because they're told they're all of these left-wing things. And that's how they vote. Don't make any mistake about that. But when you ask them, okay, if you don't believe in walls, Nancy Pelosi, then we can assume that you're going to take down the walls on your house, right? And when Jessica Alba says that there should be no such thing as borders, and there's no such thing as illegal people, and locks and doors, they're evil, then give me your address, and we'll put up flyers all over town saying that anybody can come into your house at any time of the day or night, help themselves to the refrigerator, and sleep on your couch. Live up to your own virtue signaling lies, and they won't do it.
There may be some 23-year-old kid watching this right now who is on that side of the fence that says, why do the Republicans have to keep attacking immigrants? And he just heard what you said. My question for you is, would it be any different if you were in the room with that 23-year-old kid? Would you have a different approach? Because I'm very mindful of our members and viewers who are seeing this, and they're thinking, well, I could never pull off that kind of sharp rhetoric that Bill Whittle's using there.
Sure,
what do we do when we're
say,
together in the room and you have to look the guy in the eye?
I would say to them, what's important to you? Just tell me. I don't care what it is. Is it football? Are you studying to be a doctor? Are you interested in what is it? What's important to you? And I'd find out what was important to them. And then I would immediately look at what was important to them, and I would say to them, let's say they were studying to be a doctor, let's say. Seems unlikely, but what the hell? Something that mattered to them. I said, so you're going to be a doctor. Yeah, I want to be a doctor. So that's going to entail, 12 years of postgraduate study and $200,000 in tuition? Yeah, something like that. Well, how would you feel if I were to simply take the next 10 people that walk past this door and give them medical doctor degrees? How would you feel about that? Well, what do you mean? I said, how would you feel about it? If I were to take 10 people off the street randomly and make them medical doctors, how would you feel? Well, that'd be insane. Why? Well, because they don't have any training. Oh, so what you're saying is that the work that you've invested in becoming a medical doctor qualifies you to become a medical doctor, and the idea that somebody could simply go into that end position without any training, without any work that just could be simply granted to them, offends you. Yes. Well, it offends me too. So what do you tell all of the millions and millions and millions of people who have spent years and years and thousands of dollars that they don't have in order to legally come into this country, obey the rules, become citizens, become law-abiding citizens? What do you tell those people when they can simply walk across the border and get all of the benefits of citizenship? Why are you spitting in the eyes of people who've done the right thing for a long time? What is it about those people that you hate so much? Can't you understand that this is the exact same thing that you're going through, that any rational person goes? You accuse us of being anti-immigration. We hear this all the time. It's an absolute lie. We are not anti-immigration. We are anti-illegal anything. We believe in the rule of law. And if you're telling me that you're going to come to this country and the first thing you're going to do upon arriving here is break the law, then my question to you is, why are you even leaving where you're coming from? You're coming from either political chaos or economic chaos or both. You're coming to a land that's governed by laws and prosperity and all the rest of it. And the first thing you do when you come here is to break the law? Why are you bringing what you're running away from here? If you want to be here, we want to have you here. I think immigrants are the best Americans there are. I think this country would be paradise. If I could let in 150 million immigrants who wanted to be here and at the same time export 150 million Berkeley professors who didn't, the United States of America would be on Mars in 20 minutes.
Well, bringing principled ideas and, frankly, stories to bear on the practical implications of policy. Bill Whittle now comes to you 5 days a week, and we are grateful to the people who make it possible for it to come to you. They're folks who went to BillWhittle.com and clicked on that Become a Member link and signed up. And folks there are contributing anywhere from $10 a month to about $50 a month. Sometimes they give annually. They're people just like you. They're not just people who argue about politics all the time, though, or people who think that the world is coming to an end and we're all doomed. They're people who have a lot of fun.
Yeah, and if we thought the world was coming to an end, we wouldn't be doing this. Of course we can save it. Of course we can.
And I think you'll enjoy their company when you go to BillWhittle.com and click that Become a Member link. So for Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members for making this possible.